So we are preparing live stream again. And Caitlin and Dale, you can remind me.
I think I see it now.
Where I find, do I record to the cloud? Yeah. Yeah. Caitlin and Dale, looking for confirmation. Do I record on this computer or do I record to the cloud?
Cloud.
Cloud is good.
Thank you. Great. There was a little delay there. Sorry about that. Okay, awesome. All right, we are recording.
Good and live. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, you're welcome. All right, so panelists, you have just heard the orientation script that we do, and now we're going to step back and invite you to do some introductions. And if you would give your name and your organization and a little bit about you, like a little bit, because we are now at 9:20, but also really one thing that you're proud of or celebrating today, because one of the benefits of being on a panel is getting to have some time with the awesome panelists who are also serving on this panel. And it's really hard to do that when we're not having, lunch or in the same space together before or after the discussion. So this is our attempt to at least give you a little glimpse into the cool people that that are adjudicating with you. And Jim, because you are on my screen first, I'm going to ask you to begin. Thank you.
Jim, because you're old, I'm going to ask you to begin. My name is Jim O'Connell. I am the coordinator of the undergraduate arts management program at the University of Wisconsin-Stevens Point. I have been involved with the creation and presentation grant program from the beginning. I was at the first panel. I was on the first panel that reviewed, I think, 81 applications. Very exciting. And I think this program is exceedingly important for a whole variety of ways. Something that I am proud of is that last night I successfully called back 51 potential cast members for a reading that will take place as part of the UWSP theater dance season in February. The show we are working on is The Shadow Box, which I think is particularly important in these times when we are aware of our mortality.
Thank you, Jim. Wow, that's great. Chela, you are next on my screen. Would you begin? Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Marcela Garcia, better known as Chela Garcia, and I currently serve as the Executive Director at Walker's Point Center for the Arts in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And, I've been at the helm of this organization. I guess one of the things looking forward to celebrate is 5 years on December 6th. And we're an organization that serves the Walker's Point community and beyond, specifically looking at arts education and exhibitions, gallery, and performance presentations year-round. And I'm also involved in the City of Milwaukee Arts Board as one of the mayoral appointees to that body. So I get the luxury to hear about a lot of the programmings that are going out into our community. And I think that is something that I really, really enjoy, of seeing how specifically a lot of these organizations have risen to the challenge of what it means to serve communities in a time when the arts are utmost critically important, specifically when you're looking at the engagement of youth, of folks whose voices have been historically underrepresented or maybe misrepresented in the narrative broadly of arts here in our state. So it's my pleasure to be here with you all today and excited to discuss the applications. My celebration is upcoming. So I started celebrating a little early because, that's how it works.
Awesome. Thank you, Chela. Amy, would you introduce yourself next, please?
Hi, my name is Amy Varsack, and I am the exhibitions director and curator at the Duluth Art Institute. And I have the sun reflecting off the library across the street. So there we go. I am really excited to close out this year, having pretty much a full slate of exhibitions. it's been, so as we all know, it's been really hard to keep the doors open, and to have all of our shows run this year is really exciting. And then we're opening 2022 with our open call for the 2023-2024 exhibitions. And I just secured all the panelists that help determine which artists will be showing in those 2 seasons. So I'm really excited, and I'm so proud that our organization handles accepting exhibitions through a community panel, because that just increases the voices that are heard in our galleries.
That is awesome. Thank you, Amy. And thank you for your conflict of interest. Susan, I'll tell you that it was blank, as in Amy identifies no conflicts, but Amy, I am going to put Duluth Art Institute on there with your permission, just to have
Sure.
that for our auditors, et cetera.
Okay.
Great, thank you.
Yep.
Chella, I haven't gotten yours yet. Were you able to send it?
You should have it. Let's see, refresh your browser.
Do you want to just give an audio for now, and then I'll grab it from you later? I won't grab
Sure,
you.
well,
I will accept it gratefully.
I indicated no conflict of interest, so the only organizations that I'm involved in, obviously employed with Walker's Point Center for the Arts, and then I serve on the City of Milwaukee Arts Board.
Okay,
And
great.
we are reviewing no applications that have to do with them, so it should be good.
Thank you. And Jim, I have received yours and see no conflicts with this applicant base. So awesome, great. And then staff, I'm going to start really quickly with you identifying yourselves, and end with you, George, so you can say a few words, and then we're going to kick this off. Caitlin, would you mind introducing yourself real quick?
Sure. Hi, all. Caitlin Burrell. I'm the Folk and Traditional Arts Coordinator at the Arts Board, and just working, as you've noticed, sort of behind the scenes today and making sure we're good to go live. But good to see you all.
Grateful for you. Thank you. Dale, would you go next?
Sure. Good morning. I'm the Grants and Information Specialist here at the Arts Board. I'll be in the background as well, tabulating your scores.
Thank you, Dale. Also grateful for you. Marie, would you go next, please?
Yeah, hi, I'm Marie Ackley. I'm the intern for the Arts Board, and I'll be listening in.
Thank you very much. Marie was helpful in the early part of this process as well, reviewing drafts, etc. And then George, thank you.
Good morning, all. George Sucros, Executive Director of the Arts Board, here to say thank you in the season of Thanksgiving. Thank you for the work that you've done and the work you're about to do. Our applicants really value the feedback that you provide, and so they'll look forward to that. And hopefully the home audience that's watching in on YouTube will also appreciate what's going on. And you're in great hands with Karen, the veteran, and Susan Lipp, the now veteran of the creation and presentation panel. So enjoy the day. I'm gonna leave you from Zoom, but I'm gonna listen to you on YouTube.
Thank you, George. All right, just so you know how this is going to flow, Susan is going to give you all, the primary first reader panelist will have 2 minutes to do a quick introduction of the strengths and weaknesses, your kind of synopsis. The second reader will have about a minute, and then the entire discussion should last no longer than 10 minutes. Susan's going to give you a 2-minute warning when we're 2 minutes into the discussion, and then she's going to give you a 2-minute warning when we're 2 minutes from the end of that 10-minute period of time. And with that, the very first application that we're reviewing this morning is a theater organization, the Milwaukee Youth Theater in Milwaukee. And Chella, you are the first reader on that one.
All right. So Milwaukee Youth Theater is a theater association that is based in Milwaukee, whose mission is to produce theater for children. It was founded in 1972 to enhance communication skills, teach practical skills, build confidence, and nurture children's creativity. It was formerly housed at Lincoln Center for the Arts, which is a school in the Milwaukee Public School District. but now they're renting their own space where they are taking their productions on tour. They listed impacting 9 artists and serve about 300 adults and 1,500 children, indicating that 50% or more of their programming are education programming. They produce 3 shows a year, host workshops, and teach classes. They seek operating support as they have completely changed their model and deal with significant staff turnover. Before the pandemic, the organization had 3 employees that have since stepped down, and the organization is now run by a volunteer board president. Budget-wise, the organization averages a revenue that hovers about the 21,000 mark, with 2 of the previous years that have run on deficit. Strengths of this application include their strong relationship with schools, where they meet a gap of programs that the Milwaukee Public Schools has within their theater arts programming. The organization engages youth through the creative process or theater, including stage production, lights, and creation of props. In regards to opportunities that could strengthen the application, through the application, it will share the organization is facing many changes across the organization, so including program delivery model, the staffing, the change of a board being more hands-on. However, it was unclear what the organization is doing differently to accommodate for all of these current and upcoming changes, particularly around resource and funding. The organization has been running on a deficit, so it'd be helpful to have more narrative around this issue.
2 minutes.
And I'm good.
No, please, that's just kind of a letting you know where we're at. Please, Chela, finish your thoughts.
All right. They do have to plan to hire a executive director in January of 2022. And I wasn't able to access a couple of the attachments, so I'm going to rely on the second reader just to, say a little bit more about those, specifically the budget I wasn't able to access. But I'm just going off of what was provided in the 3-year historic, income and expenses that the organization provided.
I will try to access that budget while Amy, you go next as second reader. Thank you.
You know what? I am so sorry. I think I looked at the wrong grant.
Okay.
And that I didn't see that this one was assigned to me. So I'm so sorry.
Okay. So actually all 9 are grant applications that each of you should have looked at. And then so second reader would then just kind of chime in with your thoughts related to it. So Jim, why don't I turn to you and see what your thoughts are related to that? And you're muted.
Sorry, I have 2 machines running and I don't know which keyboard I'm working. Let me see. I was just looking for the
budget.
For the budget, and I will find it in a moment.
Awesome.
My remark regarding the budget, if I can get to the right screen, is that this is clearly a shoestring operation, but their balance sheet is healthy, which indicates that the shoestring is strong. I congratulate them for maintaining their activities and their optimism when far larger organizations over the past 2 years have failed to do either of those things. I'm looking once again at the budget. There's the P&L. Yes, it does indicate deficits over the past couple of years. But their balance sheet indicates a small, but in comparison to their budget, healthy fund balance.
And does it align with the numbers that are in the synopsis section, Jim?
Excellent question to which I don't have an instantaneous.
All right, to put you back. While you look for that, I'm going to turn back to Amy to just see. Amy, do you have any comments at all on this application?
Well, one thing that I am impressed with is just the amount of minorities that they indicate that they serve. I think that is reflective of the community in which they are housed.
Thank you.
Oops.
Jim, it's okay.
I'm flipping back and forth among screens.
I understand. And my sense is that those numbers actually do reflect
Yes.
What you see in the synopsis. So,
Yes.
so other things that caught your attention that are concerns, that are strengths that you have not had a chance to share yet. Yeah, Jim.
It would be helpful if they had made clear that the executive director had been selected earlier in the discussion. Actually, it was only in the bios that we were told that the assistant director is succeeding the executive director, which would have given some context about the continuity of the operation that would have been helpful as we read the entire narrative.
Thank you for
Yeah,
that.
I have to agree.
Okay. If there are no other comments or points of discussion, yeah, Jim.
Sorry,
That's okay.
this.
And I should also say that just for those of you who don't remember this, when panels begin, the first one or two tend to just be the ones where we're finding our feet. So please don't worry about hurrying.
I was impressed by the fact that in spite of the fact that they run on a shoestring, that they charge no fee to participants in their programs. I think that's extraordinarily commendable. Their educational materials were terrific. As a matter of fact, the Women in Theater piece could be used by many organizations. Thank you.
Great. All right. If there are no other comments, please score and submit. You should all see the submit. You've all already submitted your initial comment sheets, yeah? Great, okay.
Where do I put the scores? I can't see where I put the
So
scores.
there's not a box, but there's kind of a line, or if you go to the lower part of the box area, the comment area, there
Okay,
should be
just above the comments.
Uh-huh.
Okay, got it.
Yeah. Thank you for asking that question. Dale, please unmute or give me a thumbs up when you have all three submitted. Thank you. I'm
having a hard time finding where we put the final
scores?
review. Yeah.
So the score is in the, Jim, can you describe where you just found it above the comment box on the upper right, is it?
Yes, let me show you. If you'll ignore the score in it, I will here, what I'll do is delete the score, and if I can share my screen, I can show it to you.
Okay.
Oh shit, no, forgive me. No, I can't share it with you because I'm on a different machine from the Zoom. It is right below the questions. And above where it says asterisk comments, there is a horizontal box. And if you click in that horizontal box, it goes yellow and you can enter your score.
Amy, have you already submitted your initial review?
Yes.
For this one, okay. Are you seeing the line sort of box area? No. Dale or Caitlin, do you have any insight for Amy? Otherwise, Amy, just put the, well, no, you can't just put the score in the box because it won't let you. So.
Amy, I noticed you hadn't submitted your initial ahead of time. So you don't see the scoring box until you submit that initial review. And
So
then
click
you
at the
go,
bottom and
yeah.
click submit initial review.
And she did that because I'm now seeing the submit date.
Great.
But now you have to go back to your home screen and you have to click the next one over. Does it say submitted or final? And now it shows up there with a box that you can put your score in. It's a funny two-step process.
It just, when I go to the final review, it says no results found.
I'll have to take a
Maybe
closer look then.
refresh. Jella, are you able to manage yours? Okay. Okay, great. Amy, maybe what you could do in the meantime, unless Dale, you have another solution, is just email me your scores.
Yeah.
In the 4 boxes.
And this is
I'm opening your review from the initial review icon from your home screen, and it's still there with nothing in it. So you need to open it there, and that's where you put in your comments and scores. And then you'll see a button that says Submit Final Review. I'm sorry, I misspoke earlier.
Dale or Caitlin, can you share a screen?
I'm emulating her right now, so I could share that if you like.
Awesome.
Yeah, go ahead, Dale.
And if you can emulate Amy and share hers, that would be awesome.
So Amy, from your home screen, we're still seeing them here, which is great. That's fine. So then you go look, you open it up, and now you see a place to put a score, comments, score, comments. So that's what you have to do. And then you have to also click this little box at the bottom, and then it'll let you submit the final review. And then after you've completed it, then it shows up over here. But you're done at that point.
Okay.
Nothing like learning under pressure.
Okay, I think I got it.
Thank you. And I see a thumbs up from Dale. All righty. First one is under the belt. So let us now move to the second of our applications. And that is still in the theater category. It is the Menominee Theater Guild. And Jim, you are the primary reader for this one. And you are muted.
Two machines are going to do me in. The Menominee Theater Guild is located in Menominee in Dunn County. Their mission is to engage, inspire, and entertain audiences with high quality, meaningful theater activity. Their focus is theater for youth, arts opportunity for youth. Their artists are volunteer artists primarily. Menominee is in Northwest Wisconsin, has a 20% poverty rate and a population of 16,500. They have used 6 artists to reach 700 adults and 200 children. They are primarily engaged in arts education. They own a building in downtown Menominee. They work at the Mabel Tainter Theater, and they also have done programs at the community band shell. They have an annual budget of approximately $100,000 plus. Their expenses went down to about $28,000 during COVID. They received support from the Shuttered Venue Operators Grant, and that will be used for restarting their operations, their in-person operations in this current season. The special support that they received during COVID, which gave the organization an estimation of its worth from the standpoint of its community, allowed them to replace the obsolete air conditioning system in their building, which is not the only organization that I heard of that used COVID in order to do some activity, in order to do some maintenance activities.
2 minutes.
It's a comprehensive youth theater program, vocal master classes, plus performances, creative writing and script creation, improv skills. It's a deliberate, well-crafted program focused on youth engagement. They had lovely production photos and a well-conceived radio play. I would have appreciated a clearer definition of the difference between youth programs and children's programming. They said that they are entering or have been entering the world of children's programming. I'd like to know the distinction between those two things. I would have also appreciated discussion of the use of children and adults in productions. My initial impression was that it was produced, that it was acted primarily by children, but their radio play was almost entirely adults. It would have been helpful to have more information about that. Their finances appear to be stable, although I would have an expression of regret about the need to furlough the staff member would have been appreciated just from a personal standpoint.
Thank you, Jim. Chella, you are the second reader on this one.
The narrative that they included really did paint a picture of an organization that is in flux. In its health, the board took extreme measures to help weather at that time period. I would like to see, I think one of the ways that this application could be strengthened is if a plan was more clearly articulated as to how, these changes brought stability to this organization and programming. I do commend them on offering low-cost programs that's available for engagement purposes. However, a plan for outreach is not articulated. I know that they mentioned that they're joining other art groups, and I think that's a very good step. But it's not clear how the organization is responding to ways in which the local community can be more involved in all elements of the creative process. And I particularly had a question that I don't think was cleared enough in their narrative, which was the relationship that they had to the tribal group found in their community. They mention it as, we're looking to engage, but nothing really that's, tangible. They do use various evaluations that they listed, in their narrative, which is a good thing. But again, I just think that including additional details specifically around goals and how they were met, I think would really help contextualize, the barriers and facilitators for an organization that is really weathering through really hard times. Specifically, as the upcoming seasons are happening. It just would help us understand, what the plans for the future would be.
Thank you, Chela. Amy, do you have some comments to add, strengths or weaknesses that stood out to you?
I also had that same question about the difference between like the youth and children's programming. I didn't see that spelled out anywhere. But I was impressed with like their small number of staff serving that many people, especially during the last year.
Thank you. Great. Other comments related to strengths or concerns or constructive criticism going forward? Jim, yeah.
There's a simple error in their 990 form, which they should be aware of. I have detailed it in the comment section and don't need to go through it here, but it's something that could be perpetuated forward if they aren't aware of it. So they should look in the comments for that. I'm also curious about what the new funding model will look like for the organization. They appear to have discovered the possibility of support beyond their ticket base.
But they don't articulate what that is.
Don't articulate what that would be. Yes.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I mean, who knew that by applying to the Wisconsin Arts Board, you also got some IRS related counsel, keeping out of trouble. So thank you, Jim, for that, panel for that. Appreciate it. So many reasons to apply. With that, I will ask you all to score, unless you have another comment to share. Hearing none, please score. As always, Dale, when you have all three in, please give that thumbs up icon or emoji or whatever. Thank you, Dale. All righty. Next, we move into the world of visual arts organizations. And the first one there is Sculpture Milwaukee. And Chela, you are the primary reader on this one.
All right. Sculpture Milwaukee is an organization based in Milwaukee that was founded in 2019 to create and leverage an annual world-class public sculpture exhibition through the streets of Milwaukee that fosters community engagement and spurs economic activity. They listed in their application that they engaged 34 artists and report to engage 50,000 adults and 2,000 youth. Less than 50% of the funded activities are in arts education, but they do offer in-person and virtual events that are done in collaboration with various other organizations around the city. Sculpture Milwaukee uses the consignment model where artists are paid if their artwork sells. So there's an emerging portion of that work that is commissioned where fabrication costs may be covered by the organization. It is currently the only urban location in the world with an annual exhibition of 25 plus monumental museum quality sculptures that is free and open to the public. They are very proud to be a cultural and economic addition to the downtown Milwaukee area, and they have sculptures in a geographic area about 1 mile that expands from the Milwaukee Art Museum to the Marquette University campus and from the 3rd Ward to Bronzeville, with works that feature local, national, international sculptors. They're seeking operational support. In terms of strength of this organization, I think that they do a very good job at really leveraging connections of, community members that are very much tied in with the visual arts communities that have been for a while. But in that same fold, one of my concerns is that, this organization finds their way of measuring success is very much based in a Western view and art as an industry standard, which, as an organization that really is looking for community engagement, I think that there's a big opportunity for them to rethink as to what success is, how success is articulated in ways that are a little bit more inclusive, even as they described, the upcoming guest curator, which is Dexter Gates. I think that they described him as, the best artist of color. So, it's just little wording like that, organizations should be very conscious of what, narratives we're enforcing and really regarding as higher than others. And within that, they really seek to utilize this sculptures throughout the city to have conversations and what they called leaning on the exploration of social and racial justice issues. However, they don't necessarily articulate how they are able to facilitate that. And my hope is that they don't solely rely on the guest curators to do the work. So very little is shared in the narrative to elucidate how conversations are being had, facilitated, and its impact evaluated.
Thank you, Chela. Amy, you are the second reader on this one.
Okay. I agreed. I was actually that exact wording, the best artist of color in terms of their guest curator, was what really stood out to me in terms of something they could improve upon. But what I was impressed with was their ability to pivot during COVID in terms of they looked at increasing the amount of time that sculpture was on consignment. So pieces that were on view continued to stay on view throughout the pandemic for what was longer than had originally been agreed upon. And then, sorry.
Did the computer freeze?
Yeah, I think I got it back. And then also in response to working around the pandemic, they decreased the number of artworks that were on view during that period. So I think initially their plan was 20 and then it dropped down, which is, totally understandable. I really appreciated that they were going outside the immediate area where they tend to get a lot of visitors and tourists. But totally agree that it was unclear as to what education tools were available along with the sculptures. It would have been interesting to see, and maybe I missed it, some didactics that are right next to the sculptures to see what it is that they're educating the passerbys rather than what is like official programming. I did also like that they were partnering with the schools and the Children's Museum. I thought that was a good use of resources. And the fact that they were, in some ways, they were primed for the pandemic and that it's all outdoors, so they were able to stay open versus a lot of venues that had to close. So those are my thoughts.
Thank you, Amy. Jim.
I agree with the wording of the finest artist of color. On the other hand, I am familiar with Theaster Gates' community-based work in other locations, and he is an extraordinary figure in the field. and of community-based artwork and community-based installations. So I'm delighted to see him engaged with Sculpture Milwaukee, and I commend them for that engagement. Given the scarcity of independent financial records, because they have only just moved out from under the umbrella of Milwaukee Downtown Incorporated, it would have been really helpful to have a brief summary operating statement of the organization's activities. It was difficult to distill a picture of what their finances are from the documents of the larger organization. Their working list of partners is an extraordinary list. They have a very well-conceived planning document, but the considerations on page 4 of that document are worthy of further discussion, and that discussion would have enhanced the application. They raise a number of issues that had become questions in my mind. Some discussion of those issues would have been helpful.
Jim, do you have the capacity to go into a little more detail on what those issues that caught your attention were and what you would have liked more information on?
If I can find the document, I will do that.
Okay, thank you. And if not, certainly the applicant will know what you're referencing. Okay.
And then just something to add to that, for applicants that are putting together a list of partnerships, for me, it was easy to identify what organizations they were referring to, although it was just like the acronym, like Boys and Girls Club was like B&G. And there were others that are very much very localized to Milwaukee. However, not all readers are familiar with those organizations. So that's just something to keep in mind, as you're putting together, narrative, to ensure that, and not to assume that everyone knows what you're talking about, because not all readers will be from Milwaukee and understand, what that means.
Thank you for that piece of technical assistance, Chela. Yeah, Jim.
I found the document. The issues are under the heading of community impact / footprint, and it indicates that we are uniquely positioned to offer public art as a community conversation point and ideally to spur economic activity. However, we participate in the ongoing social and political conversation, it is imperative that we approach it from a place where we can bring value. We also give tremendous consideration to expanding our footprint from Wisconsin Avenue and the 3rd Ward. I think that's worthy of conversation as well, and we must diversify our organization. Those are the 3 areas that would have been worthy of further conversation.
How they are thinking about approaching those things, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, great.
Correct.
Thank you, Jim, and Chela, and Amy. All right, if there are no other comments, please go ahead and score.
Oops.
Thank you, Dale. All right, the second of our visual arts organizations this morning is the Madison Museum of Contemporary Art in Madison. And Amy, you are the primary reader on this one.
Okay, so the Madison Museum of Contemporary Art is obviously situated in Madison, and they are an exhibiting and collecting institution. In a typical year, they tend to see about 175,000 on-site visitors and service another 200,000 through off-site education programs, as well as 200,000 in online visitors. One thing, the biggest thing that stood out to me and what they were able to do throughout the pandemic was to convert the former museum store and repurposing that into a flexible space for socially engaged exhibitions, and that was open and was barrier free to all that could walk by. I thought that was a really good use of their space and keeping it open and available to the community. I also think they really have strong community partners in terms of the schools and the community centers. And they also listed the Alzheimer's Alliance. I like to see that they did have some diversity in age range that they're reaching out to. A lot of their staffing is volunteer-based, and they indicated over 600 volunteers with 60 docents. They also have a high accessibility rate in terms of its free admission. And then they have subsidized school field trips, transportation, which I think is really important. Just having free admission isn't always enough to get people in the door. They did say that they work in accordance with the Wisconsin curriculum standards for their art tour visits. I would like a little bit more information about that. It was they just made the statement. They didn't really explain any more than that. The other thing that was impressive to me was that they did have a new digital content coordinator. And I think right now that's really important and a good use of resources, because that's where so much of the programming has to happen right now is online. And I think I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, Amy. Jim.
I echo Amy's comments, particularly regarding the move to online content and the use of the former store windows as an exhibition space. Really, really creative and well conceived. Please don't copy the same information from the organizational history into the community description. It's great information, but once is enough. Again, I would have been grateful to see at least a couple of ways in which they are activating progress toward their strategic planning goals. Hang on for a second while I find that note. Yes, the strategic long-range plan is a fine example of aspirational topics, but it would have been helpful to drill down at least into a few of them to provide examples of the objectives and strategies that you were going to use to achieve these goals. I think that everything else that I have on my list was articulated by Amy.
All right, thank you. Chella.
Yes, I mean, I agree. I think that, especially during the times that we're living, the more resources we can put in the hands in the digital world, I think the smarter and more responsive you are as an organization. So kudos to them for really pivoting and making that those changes. I guess for me, the only thing that I would add, they did say that they had an endowment fund. So considering that it's a pretty significant amount of money in their endowment, I guess just having more details about the urgency of the current needs would help explain why receiving this particular pot of money would make a difference in this point in time.
Thank you. Any other comments on this application before you score? All right, hearing none, please go ahead and score. Thank you, Dale. All right, now we're moving into the multidisciplinary arts organizations grouping. And the first of those is Dillman's Creative Arts Foundation. And Chella, you are the first reader on that one.
All right, just looking for my notes, lost the tab here. All right. All right, Dillman's, right?
Yep.
All right. So Dillman's Creative Arts Foundation is located in Lac-du-Flambeau, Wisconsin. It was founded in 1989 with a mission to bring cultural enrichment and educational opportunities to fine arts in northern Wisconsin and beyond. And this year was the 44th year where they offered workshop in the Northwoods community, and they attract about 3,500 artists from across the United States and from many foreign countries. And they have topics that range within this workshops from painting, drawing, mixed media. They also offer various other mediums such as photography, wood carving, nature studies, Native American history and music, fabric art, and nature writing. So the artistic community includes art teachers locally. They engage with art leagues and are members of the greater Lakeland community. And because they live so close to the Native American reservation of Lac-du-Flambeau, they consider themselves to be part of the Native American culture, where they highlight and offer Native American art and cultural assets. They involve about 41 artists, 400 adults, and 5 youth that was listed in their application. And they currently have no paid staff, but are run by a board or advisory committee of 9 people. In 2020, the workshop schedule, they only ran 10% of their classes. And in 2021, 65% of the scheduled classes are scheduled to happen. They have seen a dip in enrollment, and they are hoping to average about 75% of participating attendees in their programming.
2 minutes.
And hold on, let me open up my actual notes from the application. And I guess like what I wanted to say about this specific application is that the amount of classes that are offered are very much noteworthy. And I really appreciated how a lot of these, demonstrations were made into an online resource, which I think is, again, a great way to expand their reach. The way that the community in which they center operates is described and highlights how close-knit artists are to the place in the organization. And let's see. And they do mention how they have been successful at having some of their students now be instructors. However, if that's a form of metric of success, I guess I would just like to see, I guess like how they're tracking that and really commit to making that one of their success metrics. And it's incredible how much of this work is done on a volunteer basis. I think in regards to strengthening, it would be helpful to see more details of the plans to reach aspirational benchmarks in the coming years, and maybe expanding a little bit more on the partnership with the local tribal community. I think that would help contextualize how programs and collaborations are integral to the whole local community.
Thank you, Chela. Amy, I think you are the second reader on this one.
Yeah, and what stood out to me was in their description, they did talk about having a collaborative relationship with the local community. But that got me thinking about, like, in terms of this organization, who is their community? Who are they serving? And to me, it came across as they are serving the artists and students that sign up for their classes. So I really would have liked to see more information about who those people are. What are some of the demographics of their students? Because I looked at their 2021 list of classes, and from what I could see, they offered about 45 classes, and only one of those classes was a Native American subject matter. And so to me, I felt like they talked about having that relationship. It came through in their narrative, but I didn't see any information like really backing that up. What does that look like in terms of the classes that they're offering and in terms of the students that they're serving? And then I also wanted a little bit more information about their evaluations. It seemed like most of the information they provided was anecdotal. I wanted to see a little more data-driven information. Those are my thoughts.
Thanks, Amy. Jim.
It would be tempting to view this this organization as a way of generating room nights at the resort. I want to say that the continuation of their programming via the free online workshops was reassuring in that to that extent, and was helpful to me in understanding their commitment to this kind of work. I too would have been pleased to see some kind of endorsement from their community connections, particularly from the Native American and tribal communities and organizations that they cite. They particularly indicated that one of their board members has a connection with the Waskaganish Living Arts and Culture Board, and there was no indication of who that might have been on their board list.
I'm sorry, on whose board list?
On the board list of this organization. When they submitted their Dillman submitted their list of board of directors, in the narrative it indicated that at least one of those directors was associated with the Native American Living Arts and Culture program, and but there was no indication on that list of that affiliation.
So it would have been helpful to have known which board member.
Correct.
Gotcha.
Correct.
A quick question to the panel. This is a multidisciplinary organization, and so beyond the visual arts, what other, they have had a presenting series in the past, and just wanted to check in with you all on that piece.
I was confused by that. I saw this as a visual arts organization.
Ah. Okay.
I did as well.
Okay. Got it. Alrighty, that's a nod for all three. So what I'm hearing from you is if they are coming back into the program, if you recommend them for a grant, you would encourage them and us to put them in the visual arts category. Okay. All right. Thank you. Alrighty then, if there are no other comments, please score. And Dale, as the panel scores, let's you and I make a mental note to talk about transferring this organization within this database into the visual arts cohort after this meeting at some point. Thanks, Dale. And I will also just note that, I'll check in with the applicant on that. It may be well that their presenting series just went into abeyance during the pandemic, but it's a good chance to double check with them. All right, moving further into the multidisciplinary organization category, we have Ex Fabula, and Jim, you are the primary reader on this one.
Yes, I am. Really ready to say something. Ex Fabula, which is a Latin phrase meaning from stories, is a personal storytelling organization fostering empathy and understanding in the Milwaukee community. Its budget is approximately $250,000 a year. It works primarily with volunteer artists and is engaged in participatory art making for the purposes of self-advocacy, community development, job seeking and funding seeking, educating others, and personal healing and growth. It's been around for 12 years and has grown exponentially from its first project of 65 people. Let's see, they give workshops, run story circles, give one-on-one coaching to folks who are engaged in trying to tell their own stories, and they present curated story slams. They have, over their lifetime, worked with 36,000 reached 36,000 community members with 600 storytelling events involving 840 people and 1,500 stories. It is really an extraordinary organization that is running with a staff of 4 and a board of 10. They have done amazing work diversifying the ways in which they engage with the community, not only in terms of race and ethnicity, but in terms of ability. They had a Deaf Story Slam, which they provided an example of in the work materials, which was quite extraordinary.
2 minutes.
I am tremendously impressed that this organization spends money in their marketing plan with the house organs of the communities that they seek to serve. They have a great multidimensional evaluation process for their workshop participants, staff members, and partners. They have worked with Ubuntu research and evaluation, equity evaluation, and they are working on a culture of continuing improvement. Let's see. They worry that that their partners don't understand the time that it takes to give individual coaching and to engage in a trust relationship with their clients and eventual artists in order to enable those people, to empower those people to tell their stories. It seems to me that the extraordinary statistics they cite in their history may inadvertently give rise to the impression that their work is easy. So it might be that in working with their partners, it would be helpful for them to craft a new introduction to the organization, leading with the trust building process and its necessity, and then citing the results of the process.
Thank you for that piece, Jim. All right, our secondary reader on this one, please.
Sing with me?
Yeah.
All right. Yes, so I echo all of the comments that Jim brought up. I think the organization has been able to really do outstanding work through COVID-19, as evidenced by the virtual programming, which was a great way to respond to these new challenges. The goal of amplifying underrepresented and misrepresented voices is clearly understood throughout the narrative, and I thought that the attachment that they provided for their this application really brought that into context and gave it more life. The connections that are facilitated by their programs can be appreciated by the quotes that are shared. And, you know, going back to the robust tools that they have for evaluation, I think that gathering data is a significant adjustment that adjustments to help move their mission along. You know, and the organization has put a lot of thought regarding accommodations to be as exclusive as possible, and it shows. And I think that they're really investing in the right areas to help them move along in that regard. And yeah, I think that they're doing amazing work and are adjusting to the challenges that, you know, all arts organizations are doing, but they're doing it in a way that, you know, it's still staying very true to their mission. So kudos to them.
Thank you, Chela. Amy.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with everything that was said. I think one of the bigger indications to me about their inclusivity is the fact that they hired a public ally community connector. I haven't seen that in other organizations, and I think it's a much needed position. And for this organization to recognize that and allocate resources toward that during the pandemic, like, I think that is such a strong indicator of how committed they are to engaging with the community in which they're serving and the community that extends outside like their base.
Thank you for that. One of the things that I forgot to mention in the beginning is if you see something that you would call out as a best practice or a model of some sort, please do articulate that, call that out in the discussion. And I wonder, given your comment there, Amy, if you feel as though hiring a public ally, depending on the organization, is a best practice.
I absolutely, you know, especially right now in response to, you know, everything that's been happening, just giving voice to the marginalized communities in which we serve is so important and long overlooked. So yes.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah, so the only piece around that, Karen, is that Public Allies is obviously based in Milwaukee. I think there's an expansion in the Racine-Kenosha area, but just to caution that it's not necessarily available throughout the state. So there's an expansion plan for the organization, but I think ultimately we're looking at that model of, you know, organizations that are bringing local talent and using that to really inform their outreach strategies is like the underlying thing. So hopefully Public Allies will be throughout the state and everyone can hire them. That's my wish. But it's going to take a little time to get there.
Understood. And thank you for that context, Chela. That's great. All right. Anything else on this particular application before you score? All right, then please score. Thank you, Dale. All righty. Next in the multidisciplinary organizations category, we have Linden Inc. And Amy, you are the first reader on that one.
Okay. So Linden Inc., they describe themselves as a laboratory in which they offer hands-on programming, integrating sculpture collection, temporary installations, and a community of artists with the natural ecology of a 40-acre site. So I have to admit, I was a little bit confused about the structure of their organization because from what I understand, it is born from a separate organization that is still serving almost as if they were a parenting organization. So that's my constructive feedback is to spell that out a little bit more clearly. And I even thought, gosh, a flow chart would help me so much right now to see how it all filters out. But that being said, I was really impressed with the fact that they were able to continue programming and meeting the needs of the community. They were providing virtual programming, and one of the biggest indications of their accessibility was that they waived the admission fee, and that's ongoing. They didn't indicate a plan as to when they might start charging admission, or if this is like a permanent situation. And I think in a way, like their weakness of still trying to kind of figure out where they're going can also be their strength, because it seems like this organization has just a potential for growth and change, and they recognize that they're in a position that they can be responsive to what the community does need. I also was impressed with their teacher in residence program and bringing in a lot of programming around refugees in their community. They also have translators available, which I haven't seen a lot of either. And I love their little tagline, art can make communities legible to each other. And I think that speaks a lot towards what they're trying to do with their facility, is opening it up and creating conversation. So bottom line, my last comment, the organization recognizes it is in transition and does appear to be reaching out to the community to help shape their future. But the long-term goals just weren't clear to me.
Thank you, Amy. Jim, you're the second on this one.
Yes. This had the most eloquent community description that I have run across, which articulated points of view and goals that were that ran throughout the narrative and the information that they provided. The two major programs, call and response, focusing on the Black community, and home, focusing on the refugee community, are extraordinary, and they carry through the values of the organization very effectively. This is the organization that actually purchases advertising in minority community publications on a regular basis, and I think that is commendable and mission driven as well as marketing driven. This is a very unexpected organization in many ways, and you're right, Amy, the structure is difficult to discern at first glance. Essentially, the Bradley Family Foundation pays whatever bills Linden doesn't cover through its grants and earned income, including paying the majority of the salaries of its obviously very dedicated and highly qualified staff. I did find a paragraph in their audited financial statements which explains the relationship between Linden and the Bradley Foundation. It would have been helpful to have that paragraph, which begins, Linden Inc. collaborates with the Bradley Family Foundation, and talks about the term of the collaboration. It would have been helpful to have the information included in that paragraph somewhere in the narrative which would have contextualized the program. They have a very, let's see, sorry about that. I just said that. I'll stop now.
All right, Chela, would you like to add something?
Yeah, I mean, I think as someone who is, in Milwaukee and actually does programmatic collaboration with the organization, I have some insights in regards to the, I guess, like the structure piece of things. So, the Bradley Family Foundation, obviously the location where they're at was like the family estate. So they're very much closely integrated with the Bradley Family Foundation. I think that there's departure from a financial standpoint is one that allows the organization to be able to go and retain funding that might be in conflict with the political views of the Bradley Foundation as a funding mechanism. So I think that that's something that they're doing as a mechanism for foresight as the organization maybe changes from a primary target group. I think that being able to focus on the refugee population is a niche that is very much needed during this time. They mentioned that they have someone on staff who is now gaining notoriety, not only locally, but nationally for the model that they've been able to implement and have. And so I think that's really a good way for an organization that's looking to kind of stand out from maybe a very status quo organization now into being more of a, front lines of serving, underrepresented populations. They are in the outskirts and actually in the border of Brookfield, Wisconsin. So I think that being able to have programs that attract, the folks that live in Milwaukee, I think it's going to be really important to the livelihood of that mission. They did mention that they were able to increase wages and offer health benefits. So I think that's a really great way to invest in the people that keep their mission alive. And yeah, I think they're doing amazing things, and the changes that they're doing reflect a very optimistic way of providing more in a time where everyone wants more.
Thank you. Other comments on this application?
I want to echo everything that Chella said. They almost apologize for having a statement of principle instead of a formal planning document. But although it is not a traditional plan as they describe it, it certainly appears to have been effective, and it's clear that they're following it, that it echoes throughout their work. And I love the phone interview of teachers and the restoration field follow-up evaluation efforts. Those both seem to me that they would generate rich information that would be useful for the organization.
Thank you.
I also just wanted to add that I really enjoyed their work samples. I think their images were really inspiring and seemed to capture their programming. Like they even included an image with, I don't know if it was a Zoom meeting or, but something that indicates their ability to do their online programming. I just found that their photos seemed to really represent the heart of this organization, which is, I think, its biggest strength.
And they only cheated slightly by having several multiple images.
Yeah.
Aha. Good to know. Thank you all. If there are no other comments, please go ahead and score. All right, Dale. Next up, and the last one in the multidisciplinary arts organization category, is the Madison Children's Museum. And I was just double checking to pull up the financial information that they had submitted since their original application, kind of clarifying their budget. Hopefully you all saw that in the notes within the application, but if you did not, I am happy to, I'm happy to answer any questions or talk about that with you all. And Amy, you are the first on this one again.
Okay, so the Madison Children's Museum, obviously in Madison, Dane County, and their mission, connecting children with their families, their communities, and the world beyond through discovery, learning, and creative play. They began in 1980 as a traveling exhibition, and programming moved into 1991 with a rented facility on the Capitol Square, and eventually moving into a larger facility. I was impressed that they pay 80% of their artists and rely on 20% volunteers. I think volunteership is really important in terms of community engagement, but paying artists is very commendable when it's possible. The one thing that did confuse me was they had the exact same attendee number for the adult children, 105,422 attendees. And I thought that is a really specific number to be exact for both the children and adults. So wanted a little bit more context to like, what are their actual numbers? I think they're doing a great job collaborating with the teachers and students in the area. And then their commitment to using local designers and artists for the fabrication of the materials is highly commendable. I also really enjoy that they employ artists to create and design their play structures. I think that really evokes a lot of creativity in the results, and I think it's great role modeling for kids to see artists in action. They did indicate 20 to 30% of their participants use the Access for Everyone programs. So that includes free and low cost visitation and membership options. I really like that they have low cost membership options, as well as programming partnerships with social service organizations that are local. To me, it seemed like they had clear long-term outcomes and indicators. Yeah, I'll leave it at that for now.
All right, Jim, you are the second on this one. And you are muted.
There we go. I noticed the same typo you did, Amy, on the attendance figures. One other thing that I noticed with regard to that could have used more proofreading was that the cover sheet for their strategic plan was overwritten on their artistic and administrative personnel biography sheet. So read not just the body, but the header of your cover sheets. There's no demerits associated with that. Just a word to the wise. There are the clear connections that they articulated and the mutually beneficial relationships they've established with their local partnerships are really exemplary. I would have liked more information about that only local design, fabrication, and materials information. I wasn't certain whether that was associated with their entire operation over time or whether it was for a particular expansion or set of exhibitions. It would have been helpful to have that more clearly defined rather than simply named. Sorry. I am really impressed by they have excellent goal. They had an excellent goals and objectives summary, perhaps the best one we saw in this batch. They went further than just the goals, but talked about the ways in which they were going to activate their plan. Very well articulated strategic goals and planning process, and they have a commitment from a UW-Madison team to provide evaluation for their new space which they just opened, and that was exceedingly heartening and helpful to see.
Thank you. Chella. You are muted for some reason.
All right.
Thank you.
1 second. I lost
Yeah.
my tab here. Yes, I mean, I agree with the comment of my peers here. I think that they do a very good use of metrics to track their impact. And the fact that they acknowledge the critical role that they have, as the first exposure to arts and culture for many kids and maybe even the parents in that partnership with the children is very important duty that they uphold with passion and thoughtfulness.
All right. Thank you. Other comments on this one? And if not, please go ahead and score. Thank you, Dale. All right, that leads us into our last category, presenting organizations. And the Wisconsin Lutheran College is up. Jim, you're the lead on this one.
Wisconsin Lutheran College, its fine arts program is housed in a small sectarian liberal arts college in the western part of Milwaukee, serving the neighborhood in which they exist and Wauwatosa. They offer a diverse range of arts experiences for campus, community, and their community of neighbors. They indicate that they are trying to look past their immediate neighborhood and be of more and connect more thoroughly with the Milwaukee community as a whole. I don't see examples of that noted in the materials that they presented. They traditionally bring in 14 artists, serve 1,400 adults and 100 children. It appears that the university supports their salaries. And in the COVID years, that support increased to beyond salaries, and they supported other activities. So it's clear that the university is committed to this programming. This is a nice middle of the road programming series. For an organization with a quality acoustical facility, but a small budget and a small audience capacity. Forgive me. They have rather a traditional.
2 minutes.
They have rather a traditional marketing plan targeting traditional arts audiences. A large part of their funding goes to programming in or buying advertising in the programs of other arts organizations. If they want to reach a community beyond that to which they currently serve, they probably need to look to additional marketing channels. A more clear identification of their board listing, perhaps in the narrative, would have been helpful. My impression had been that the programming advisory committee consisted of community members, but the group that was listed had 2 community members, 2 staff members, 2 college administrators, and 1 student employee. Is this the advisory group, or is there another advisory group, is the question. Okay, here's my more fully about the salaries. It appears that the college traditionally supports staff salaries, but in COVID years, the subsidy increased by $12,000 to $13,000. The salaries are listed, or the employees are listed as full-time, but the salaries that are listed on the budget are not the equivalent of full-time salaries. So I'm wondering if there's an invisible subsidy that we're not seeing here, or if the people are actually that low paid. I would have appreciated information on their relationship with Kothi Dance Company, which is the most tangible example that they gave of reaching beyond their neighborhood and traditional audience into greater Milwaukee. But I didn't find anything about that miniseries in the support materials that they provided. A letter of support or an additional upload of the plans would have been helpful.
All right. Thank you, Jim. I appreciate that. And secondary reader is Chela.
I agree with what Jim stated. And then looking at their financials and just going off of, I guess, them running the deficit and, the college picking up more and more of the operational costs. They also said that their patron base is reducing. So I guess for me, the question is, if they were able to provide a little bit more details on the strategy to account for these losses, would help better illustrate long-term sustainability for the group. And then within the payment, I'm just encouraging organizations to also consider paying equitable pay for students. I know that they listed finding ways to reduce costs on that as a feather in their cap. So just looking at, better supporting the student demographic, I think would help strengthen how they support, the folks that keep their mission moving forward. I guess for me, the program that's housed under the college, but it wasn't, going back to the comments related to, Kothi and other partnerships that are brought in, I didn't necessarily see a strategy or a strategy articulated on how community outside of the school community is, embedded even in what is selected, the programming, that is done, and how all of that comes together for the broader community. And, they do list collaborations with the hope that it's going to widen their audience and diversify, the audience base. But again, there's a little bit more in the narrative as to what that strategy looks like and what their goals are around that. I think would really help solidify this application as a community strategy rather than just a department of an organization seeking out arts-related funding.
Thank you, Chela. Amy, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I would pretty much echo what others have said. What stuck out to me was their comment on, well, a couple of things, but one of them was their comment on their aging patron population. And I see that as an opportunity for change and growth within this organization, but they're struggling with how to make that happen. So I think part of how to make that happen is to engage more with the community that they exist. I mean, they're in Milwaukee, so there's a large population that they could tap into and draw into their programming. One sentence that was in their proposal is In our increasingly divided society, guest artist series performances provide an opportunity to break down barriers while uniting around a shared experience. I want more information, like how, like who are these guest artists? And I think that could be their golden ticket to get the community involved. So how are they deciding who the guest artists are? And are they just reaching out into the community enough to get people excited about that programming?
Yeah, Jim.
Specifically, in that regard, reaching into the non-audience community to assess needs and interests might be one thing that they could do that I didn't see evidence of, and reaching into their student body as a whole to assess needs and interests. Both of those things could be key to the development of the program into the future, into a sustainable future, as you said, Amy.
Mm-hmm. Right, because they had talked about how they feel like they're responsive to feedback from the patrons, and they listed an example of changing up some of their piano programming. But I think you're exactly right. Like they're, just looking into their patron base for their evaluations rather than reaching out into the community and saying, hey, what do you all want to see? What do you all want to hear? I think that yes, they're missing that opportunity. I'm good.
All right, thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry. I do have one more thing. One thing that did impress me was that moving forward in 2022, they do have an outdoor program scheduled. So I think that is exactly the direction that they need to be going in to gain those patrons, and during COVID, bringing things outside and hopefully continuing that once this whole pandemic is done.
Done. There's an interesting word.
I know. I'm going to stick with it though for now.
All righty. Aspirational planning. Okay, not about Wisconsin Lutheran. All right, please then score. And Dale, let me know when we're all in.
Karen, are we taking any breaks at all?
Right after this, everybody gets to stretch and do whatever you need to do for, what do you need 10? Do you want 5? How are we doing? We're at 10:56 right now. 5 minutes from Chella. 5, okay. 5 sounds good. We'll aim for 5, aspirational planning. And see you guys as soon as you put in your scores. Please go ahead and stretch. And we'll be back here at 11:01. Thank you. Welcome back.
Thanks. You
Yeah.
look like you were freezing today. Are you?
I am.
I was too. I'm just absolutely frozen.
Oh, November.
That's why I needed the break. I needed to go get something warm up.
Warm up? Yeah. Where was your tech assistant?
Where were you? Yeah, right. He was actually washing the floor.
Oh,
No.
God bless him.
It's been 2 years since.
Wait a minute, can I hire him?
No,
How do I get one of those?
he's really, really expensive. I mean, I thought I had an expensive cleaning person when we had one. This one is way more expensive.
Awesome. All righty, I think we are all back. And what that means at this point is that when Dale is able to share the scoring that you all have put together, he will do that. In the meantime, oh, hang on, he's doing it now. Wow, you will see what you have wrought here. Okay, so we have, I'm going to give you a minute to look at this. We haven't broken it down by discipline here, which is fine, but it gives you a sense of what it was that you just did in terms of scoring. So great. As you look at this, is there anything that stands out or strikes you, or does it all seem like, yep, that's that aligns with what we were talking about? It is not always that we see a smaller budget organization at the top. So I just want to note that. And that's really helpful. I will look forward to talking with the applicants afterwards on any questions they have and to synopsize your comments for them if they are interested in having that conversation. Dale, thank you. I think we're good. You can stop sharing. Thank you. All righty. And then I'm going to just ask you all to accept our gratitude for the work that you have done on these. You clearly spent time with them, honoring the many hours that they put into these applications, and your insights and sometimes your tax advice were really very much appreciated, and I'll be honored to pass that on to the applicants. Would love to know any thoughts about the process, the review process, the applications themselves, the insights into any trends that you saw within this applicant pool. A little harder to find when you're dealing with lots of different disciplines, but there may be some trends that you're noticing. I mean, we are all going through a pandemic. And yeah, just anything that you would like to share that was really helpful and worked for you, or really wasn't very helpful and didn't work for you, and you'd like to suggest a change for us going forward. And now I'll stop talking and let you chime in.
I think that the questions, the way that they were articulated of the what, the how, I forget the exact ones, but I think that was really a good way of providing a loose enough framework for organizations to really showcase, you know, what they felt was important to share. And I think that in it of itself illustrates a lot about the organization, their priorities. And you know, I think you're right, Karen, in terms of, you know, trends that we are seeing of organizations that are, you know, responding to changes, to different modalities, program delivery models. And I think it's important for us to keep track of that. And, you know, going back to the support that the Wisconsin Art Board is able to offer these organizations, you know, that gives you some concrete items that might be worthwhile of exploring, whether it's, you know, a workshop, or maybe it's a bringing together of organizations that are confronting the same type of struggle in a way to create more of that peer network of support. And I think that can be a very valuable tool for us, you know, as we look towards advancing the state and really creating those relationships of, you know, what is working and what is not.
Thank you. Great. Helpful. Jim, you've unmuted.
I would, I agree with what Chella said, especially with regard to the pivots that organizations made during COVID, both to virtual activity and to other kinds of activity. The window exhibition by Momoka comes to mind. Were really interesting, and I will be curious to see how those things develop and are integrated into the programs of organizations like this in the future. I also put in that category the radio play that Menominee Theater Guild did. Those are innovative things that appear to have made an impact, and it will be interesting to see what impacts those continue to make. I also notice an increase in the frequency and sophistication and diversity of evaluation techniques that organizations are using. When this program started, it was difficult to find sophisticated evaluation, and now you find sophisticated evaluation being used effectively in organizations of all sizes. And I think that has something to do with the structure of this organization, and in particular question, how do you know? I commend the Arts Board for that, because I think it's making a difference in the quality of the work that's being done around the state. Not just on evaluation, but the quality of the work as the result of effective evaluation that's being done around the state. And finally, I just want to say that it is always such a joy to serve on this panel, because I find out about incredible work that's being done by amazing organizations, large and small, all over the place. And it's just thrilling to know that it's being done here.
Thank you, Jim. Amy.
Yeah, I wanted to chime in that I really, I felt really comfortable with the layout of the scoring, the what, the who, that really helped frame like what I was looking for as a panelist within their narratives. And then just a nod to all the applicants. I think the passion that they all have for their organizations is so apparent. And this drive to want to survive is just, it's really inspiring. And it's one of the reasons why I love working in the arts, because I know I'm preaching to the choir here, but it's so important to all of our communities. So I should also mention, I did read that first grant. I just hadn't read it to the detail with my notes in terms of second reader. I was like, oh no, if I had written that grant, I would be so angry right now to hear a panelist didn't read it, but I did. I read it. It just wasn't, I didn't read it to the attention of the second presenter. And then in terms of the scaling, I think the score 1 to 100 threw me a little bit. Because it's such a broad scale, but the outcome, looking at all of our scores, like we were pretty even. So in the end, it worked out. It was just like in my mind, I was kind of like, oh, if I had a 135 rating, that might help me. But when you're dealing with larger number of applicants, not like in this case, then 1, 2, 3 digits can make a big difference. So I get the 100 scale, but I also thought it was worth just mentioning.
Thank you. I'm glad you did. And this is my moment to fess up that we had moved to a 1 to 5, not 1 to 25 on each of these. And somehow that scoring rubric did not come to you. And so I couldn't, when I caught that this morning, change it on you at the last moment. So I didn't. But thank you. You're spot on with the other panels who have encouraged us to do what we have done, just didn't for this one. And in the end, the scores that I see are certainly reflective of that. We just made you work a little harder and with a little bit more nuance. So my apology for that. That is totally on me. Jim.
One thing that I would like to use this forum to say to the field is that there was one dichotomy in the attitudes of the organizations that I saw. And that was the degree to which they expressed, the degree to which they were able to keep existing employees on the payroll during COVID, and the degree to which they considered not keeping those employees something of a triumph, not keeping those employees, furloughing or letting go employees, something to be praised rather than something to be regretted. What I wish would happen is that the people who are engaged in boards of arts organizations would value the work and the livelihood of the people who are paid by those arts organizations, and to the extent possible, pay them a living wage, make it a dependable source of income for these folks, whether it's full-time or part-time. I think that's something crucial that has to happen. I hope that it hasn't been short-circuited, that progress toward that hasn't been short-circuited by COVID.
Thank you for calling that out. I'd like to just say that in the music organizations and in the other full organizations, we did not see any celebrating of furloughing or anything. And it might just be a word choice in this one.
I think,
by and large, there is nothing but mourning and regret for having to let staff go or be furloughed. So for you to call that out here is really helpful. Susan, did I just see your hand go up? Sorry. Yeah, go ahead, please.
I just wanted to make a comment on that. I sit on 9 boards of directors, and all of them have continued paying living wages to all of the employees. In the music business, as in the business area, people have had to furlough and people have had to get rid of a lot of people. It's a whole different thing in the industry as it is in the arts. The arts have been fabulous as continuing to pay their people, to keep them on board and keep them involved. In the business area, not so much, which is sad.
And I would thank you for calling that out, Susan. I would say that 2020 and 2021 are almost both in the rearview mirror. We have 2022 and 2023 and 2024 at least to move through in this pandemic reverb time. So, so this is a really helpful conversation. And Jim, I'd also like to say that your comment, I really appreciated your comment from a very seasoned, the longevity of your ability to look at where this creation and presentation grant program began, because you were one of our first panelists on that first year. And now, so to be able to observe what you observed is really valuable from that point. And I deeply value that, as I deeply value, new perspectives into this program as well. So thank you, Amy. And then Chella has been in the mix for a bit. 5 years. That's just an awesome anniversary at Walker's Point Center for the Arts. Congratulations. Susan.
I'd also like to thank all of the panelists, because it's a lot of work. It's a real lot of work. And they have to spend a lot of time reading and understanding and then scoring. It's not an easy job. And thank you so much as a member of the Arts Board of Directors. I really do appreciate what you've done. Thanks.
Thank you, Susan. I will also say that it's really hard to be chair and not say anything at all when these things are being discussed. So kudos back to you. Yeah, anything else From your
especially
perspective,
when I
Susan.
really wanted to. There are a couple of them I really wanted to talk about.
Yeah, Jim.
Just an indicate or an expression of gratitude from me in my semi-conscious state of the work of my colleagues Amy and Chella. My word, it was fun to work with you. However briefly, and I hope we get the opportunity to do so again.
Nice. All righty. And always a
Thank you,
privilege
and likewise.
for me as well. All right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you all. I will be following up with, once the dust has settled a little bit, with a quick evaluation form and just encouraging any other thoughts that percolate up over the next little while. And then we will, as Susan said in the beginning, share your comments and recommendations with the board at their December 3rd board meeting. So on that note, much gratitude to you all, and wishes for a happy Thanksgiving season. And yeah, we will connect again soon, I hope.
Thank you all.
Take care, everybody.
Good.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks.